Hi, I'm Alicia and welcome to my channel Paper Craft Secrets. Today I'm creating an explosion box from the Mintay Paper's Woodland collection. This is a special box that explodes into a card that can be made for somebody special. And inside the middle of the card we have some pop-up little woodland creatures. You can see the box here. It's simply decorated, but when you open it, you can see how everything pops out or explodes, and you can see the little woodland creatures in the middle of the box. And then it folds back up and you can pop the lid on like that. So today we're going to be using the Mintay Paper's Woodland collection. It's an absolutely magical collection. And we're going to also be using some 12 by 12 card stock in craft color. So your first step with your 12 by 12 craft cardstock is to score it at 4 inches and at 8 inches, 4 inches and 8 inches to create a grid. The next step is to take your paper trimmer. We're going to diagonally trim the corners of our 12 by 12 paper. So line up your folded marks or your scoring lines and trim off each one of those corners. You actually now have an octagon shape. Now we're going to fold along those lines, and this will become the base of our exploding box. You can use a boning folder to crease your lines and get a lovely crisp fold. I've chosen this color cardstock because I think the natural color works well with the papers in this collection. Our next step is to fold in these corner bits. So you want to get it to make a nice triangle. You just sort of bring the edges together of the box and then smooth down the fold so that you've got that lovely triangle fold, sort of creating a little box shape. And that's the base of the box. You can see how it'll fold in and it can fold out. Our next step is to create the lid of the box. Now you will need another piece of cardstock here. I'm having to use a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock, but if you have an A4 sized piece of cardstock, you can use that as well. So the measurements for our little lid are 6 1/8 by 6 1/8. So I'm going to trim that to 6 1/8. Trim that to 6 1/8. Now we've got a 1-inch border all the way around our square lid. So we need our scoring board again, and we're going to measure our 1-inch border. So we do a 1-inch score line and we turn it. 1 inch and turn, 1 inch and turn. Got our 1-inch border all the way around. Our next step is to just trim some little tabs on the lid of our box. Now this just sort of helps the box come together neatly. Just cutting a little triangle out like that. And then we're going to fold these tabs in and create the lid of our box. So I'm just going to score score on all the folds first, just so that everything's folding nicely and easily. And then I'll take my glue and I'll glue the lid of the box together. So just a little bit of glue on each of these little tabs. And then we just put that together. Hold it for a little bit while the glue sets. Make sure that all the edges are nice and even. And then we'll put a little bit more glue on the edges of those tabs and fold that one in as well. And that's the lid of our box. Easy, isn't it? So here's the base of our box and here's the lid of our box, and it fits in beautifully. So now we've got the base, it's time to decorate, the fun part. So you need to choose some papers that you'd like to decorate your box with, and the choice of which paper to use is tricky because all of the papers are so beautiful. I wanted to use this beautiful page. I really like this page. It's got the beautiful door going through to the rest of the forest. Now we're going to need to cut some squares. The measurement for the squares is 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. So take your paper trimmer and measure at 3 3/4 and cut. And then measure again at 3 3/4 and cut. And again. Now that little bit there you need to keep, because that's going to be a useful scrap that we're going to use on the lid of our box. So don't throw that scrap away. Let's cut again at 3 3/4. Three 3/4, and again. Okay, and we're going to keep that scrap because they are going to be used. So let's just have a look at how these might look on our box. You can see that's looking really nice. The craft cardstock is a great base for these papers. Let's start gluing some of these down. These papers are going to be looking really nice on the outside of our box. And when you are gluing your papers on, just consider the direction of the print, whether you want your print in a certain way, because your box will be sitting up. So we're just gluing on those 4 main pieces, which will become the sides of our box. You can see how I'm gluing this one on technically upside down, so that when the box is the right way up, that paper is the right way up. So that'll look really nice. And then I'm going to put one on the bottom as well. While I'm here, I will decorate the lid of the box. So then when we put the lid of our box on, we'll have a really nice decorated box. Now that was so easy to do. It's really quick and easy to create. So we're going to choose another page now, and this will be mainly for the inside of our box. We're going to cut again at 3 3/4, at 3 3/4, and again at 3 3/4. And we're going to do that all the way along. And then we're going to have a little extra scrap which we'll keep. I really like this paper too. It's beautiful colours and a lovely vine wreath. Corolla always makes amazing papers to play with and create with. We're going to choose which ones we would like in our box. I'm going to choose this pretty piece for the center of the box. This one up here. And there. There. And my last one at the bottom. Looking good so far. We need to cut these into triangles so that we can put these on that part of the box. So they've got to be cut in half and then cut in half again. So we'll have 4 triangles from the one square piece, and that will mean that we'll need to do that twice. So that we'll have 8 triangles altogether. And we're going to glue those onto these little triangles. That's looking so pretty. I'm going to do the inside of my lid as well, just to sort of add some decoration to the base of the lid. Just going to pop that in there, sort of measure that, center that in the middle, and I'm going to use those little strips that we cut off on the inside of the lid as well. Why not? We've got the little scraps there, so we might as well use them. So those little scraps measure 3/4 of an inch by 3 3/4 if you need to cut any out. There we go. So I've sort of chosen like the darker coloured paper for the outside of the box and then the lighter coloured paper for the inside of the box. Now I'm going to have to use these other 2 squares to do my corners on the outside now. So I'm just cutting them all to size, and I decided to use the other side of the paper for these triangles. So I've gone with the wooden page, which was the back, which I think gives a nice contrast. So you can see how you can either contrast or keep everything the same. Just depends on what sort of look you want. Let's try our box now with the lid on it. And when we open it, it explodes out. That's looking really good. We're going to move on to our next step now, which is embellishing our box. Now I'm going to use the Woodland paper die cuts for this because I don't feel like fussy cutting tonight. I just want to create this card quickly and easily. I'm also using some clear acetate sheets to use for my little pop-up animals. I'm thinking this would look nice on the top of the box. It's got a nice rounded shape with some flowers, and then maybe it would look nice also in the middle of this box. So with my acetate, I'm just going to trim that down to 1-inch strips so that I can use these little acetate strips to let my little creatures stand up in the middle of the box. And I'm thinking that a floral cluster perhaps on each side of the panels of the box might be nice with a sentiment. So in the die cuts we have this back to nature sentiment, which I think works perfectly. So I'm just going to keep my decorations fairly simple, and I'm just going to use some little foam dots to elevate my back to nature sentiment there. And then I'll pop a couple of little dots on my floral cluster die cut. I'm going to pop that on there in the middle, and I'm going to call that panel done. Let's move on. I think that woodland is just going to be a little bit too big for my card. So I'm thinking I might use this fox, and he can stand up there in the middle of my card. So I'm just going to trim my acetate down. I'm going to fold it over where I want him to stand up, and then I'll glue the fox onto that acetate. So I'll just put a little bit of glue on there and then stick my little fox on, and he will just be standing there like a fox. And then I've got this little reindeer that's going to fit. The big reindeer was too big, but the little reindeer is perfect. So I'm going to grab a little bit more acetate, do a little bend for where the acetate will stay at the base of the box, and then I'm going to glue my deer onto that acetate strip. Doesn't want to stand up on its own, but when we glue it, it will. It's just a little bit heavy, I think. What other animals will we have? Well, here's another floral cluster, which will look really nice. Now I'm using the sticker sheet, the Woodland sticker sheet, for the rest of my sentiments, because they have these lovely horizontal sentiments. And that'll go perfectly with my back to nature sentiment. I'm just taking off those little dots and popping my floral cluster on, and yes, I'm happy with that sentiment, so I'm going to glue that securely in place there. Let's see what else we can use. Might use these other two flowers here as our other floral clusters, even though they're not overly big. Just put some little dots on the back of those and pop them onto our panel. And then choose a sentiment from the sticker sheet and just glue it along the bottom. Nature is calling. So you can see how I'm keeping the embellishments quite simple, but because the papers are so pretty, you don't need to do too much. And we'll pop that on there like that. And then we put that little sentiment on there. Forest magic. So our little fox is going to go in the middle here. He's going to stand up. And we've got our little deer that's going to stand up in the middle as well. It's going to have a few animals standing up in the middle. So let's just glue those in position. Put the deer at the back. And I'll put the fox sort of towards the front. Just positioning those to sort of see where they look the best and so that they will fold up into the box okay. Then I'm thinking of another little animal. Maybe I could use the hedgehog in the front there. Might work. And perhaps a little squirrel, because they're very cute, aren't they? So just putting some glue onto the acetate, giving it a little stand to stand on. And then let's glue that on. I'm thinking maybe a little flower here in the corner to finish that, fill that space there a little bit, and perhaps one at the back there to fill that space at the back. Maybe a little acorn at the front there. Let's just take a little close-up look at it so you can see there's our three little animals. It's looking very cute. You can see how they fit in okay, even with the boxes open or closed. Just looking for something to fill in this little space. A little acorn will do the trick. The squirrel can munch on that little acorn. Alright, we'll just add another little acorn in at the back there. So we've covered up those corners there. I'm thinking we might add a little hedgehog, either in the middle there or at the front. Use the small hedgehog rather than the large hedgehog. Just add a little bit of glue and pop him in there. That's looking very good. And now we're going to decorate the lid of our box. So I had this little thing picked aside before, the little piece of wood. I'm just going to pop some foam dots on the back of that, and then I'm just going to pop that on the top of the lid. Considering using that title, such a pretty title. So let's just have a little look and see how our box is going to look so far. I'm just popping the lid on now. It's looking good. I'm thinking of a flower on top of my box for decoration and embellishment. This flower seems to match nicely with the colours of the papers. And I'm thinking maybe some ribbon to go with my box, some white twine for embellishment. I'm going to add in a crinkled ribbon bow as well in sort of like a creamy white colour. So that'll just give a little bit more embellishment and decoration to the box. And we'll put the flower on top. That's very pretty. And when we open up our box, we want to have some more embellishment in here, so we might add in some pretty green flowers to decorate, and some ribbon to decorate as well. Move our little hedgehog to the front. And maybe some green crinkled ribbon. You know, though, I prefer the white. I end up sort of changing that green ribbon because I've got a nicer green that sort of matches better to the collection. And then I sort of think maybe I'll put the green ribbon on the lid and put the cream white ribbon inside the box. That might work better. So I changed that ribbon over. And I'm thinking I might add some white twine in to the box. I don't think you really need it. I think the ribbon's enough. Alright, let's glue this down. We've got our 2 flowers. We've got our 2 bows in there. That's just going to be a space filler. And on this side we've got our green ribbon. And that looks nice. And that's all looking really beautiful now. Our box has come together beautifully. I'm very happy with how that's come together. Let's put the lid on. There's our lid. What a beautiful gift to give to somebody special using the gorgeous Mintay Woodland collection. And a quick and easy way to put together an explosion box and decorate and embellish an explosion box with its own little pop-up animals inside. That really is very, very cute. I love the greens and the whites and browns in this collection. It's a beautiful collection by Mintay. And let's pop the lid on our box now. And our box is complete. I do hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial on how to make an explosion box using Mintay Woodland collection. It's a gorgeous natural collection. It's beautiful to play with and create with. I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and hit the like button on this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely crafty day.